Okay, I'm going to show you my original remote viewing map from when I met Melifon. At least that's what he told me in the session was his name. But that's where I met the extraterrestrial from the 1996 Varginha, Brazil crash, the UFO crash. And this is a type of remote viewing called transdimensional mapping invented by my teacher, Bertie Jawowski. In blind remote viewing, we don't know what we're looking for. We are only given 8 random numbers. Everything else comes from our subconscious minds and our psychic gifts. So it's more like a stream of consciousness. We write our impressions. Even the color of pen or pencil that we use might be relevant. In this case, it was relevant. Even if we're getting symbology and metaphor, it is also relevant, even if it's not like you're drawing the exact thing that you're supposed to be looking at. It's sort of a misplaced idea that remote viewing means you sit there and you just draw what you're supposed to be looking at. That may not be one of your skills. People who have strong visual psychic skills might do that. I've done it before, but that means you have strong clairvoyance. Not everybody has strong clairvoyance. There's other psychic gifts. Clairsentience is when you can sense energy. Claircognizance is when you just know something. Clairaudience is when you hear something. And you can use all of these skills during remote viewing. So you may get a lot of writing. You may get a lot of visuals. You may get a combination of all these things like I do. And you may even get the overarching concept. It's called a conceptual viewer when you understand what's going on, like the bigger picture of what you're looking at. So there's lots of different ways to do this, and everybody's different. But in a blind remote viewing, it means you have nothing to go on but 8 random numbers. They just designate the exercise so that you can keep track of it. So it's like an ID number. So let me zoom in and see if I can describe what was happening here. And as you can see, on the upper left hand is where I start. That's where I write my numbers. Right next to it, the circle with the orange, that is called an ideogram, which is a doodle that you do without thinking. This is to distract your egoic mind. People might call it the left brain thinking. You're trying to keep your hand busy, but also distract your brain from trying to come up with the answer of what you're looking at. Because if you try, it doesn't work. You need to be in a free-flowing state and just allow these things to come to you, sort of just like a stream of consciousness is what you would say. So you draw this ideogram, which is just the first thing that comes to you without thinking. It's like an automatic drawing. The ideograms, there's like 6 main ones that all represent something. Like a circle can represent a being. A flat line can represent distance or a surface. If you make sort of a geometric shape, it could be a building or a structure. If you make waves, it could be water, and so on. So they can also be a combination of all these things. You invent your own after a while. Mine sometimes end up being the answer. I once drew an ideogram that looked just like this, colored it yellow, and knew there was a lot of energy coming out of it, and just said it was an orb, and it was. Like that ended up being the answer of what I was looking at. But remote viewing is not about getting the answer. That's not all it's about. It is also about getting the details. It's mostly about getting the details of what you're looking at. You're not just trying to guess, like, oh, I'm looking at a bowling pin with the number 9 on it or something. That's not useful. You are trying to get a story, ultimately. So I'm not an expert in remote viewing. I only started it a year ago, but I'm not that bad at it, and I actually got some really, really accurate data. And I already know that about myself. I've always gotten accurate data, so I can trust what I get. And I also know how to deconstruct the data that is not literal. Sometimes you get symbolic data, such as this unicorn. I wasn't looking at a unicorn, but he felt like a unicorn. And he had a horn. Well, the extraterrestrial at Varginha had 3 little horns. And my subconscious thinks, what's a horned animal? What's a unicorn? You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons why unicorn came out here that I'll go into, but that's part of it. That's how you can deconstruct your sessions, is learning to research the experience after you're done and find out what was relevant from your session. It may not look like literally the thing that you were supposed to see, but it still is that thing. Okay? So I just start writing and drawing. My art style is kind of wild like this, so I'm just starting to write all of my impressions. The ideogram, I wanted to pick orange, and it felt like a lot of energy. What I drew with the lines coming out is when I get a lot of energy, and I said it was loops of thought in a busy mind. So I got that this was a being. It was a round circle that would, sort of indicate a head. And then orange to me is a very energetic color. So you see how I'm associating color with meaning here? And I drew the little lines coming out that symbolizes energy coming out. So I'm thinking it's thought, right? This person is an intellectual, which turned out to be true, okay? And then over here, I started on the very right-hand side. Ignore the first column where I circled all those words. That was what I did at the end. I was asking if it really was like I was basically taking the most important repeating words and ideas out of the session and asking myself if it was any of those things. So my first impressions, having nothing to go on other than these 8 random numbers, are that this is a complicated being, sometimes a prickly personality, dynamic forward thinking, and moving energy, a visionary person, and a groundbreaker. That's important. A groundbreaker. Like, literally, this being landed on Earth, broke ground here on Earth with his species. I don't know if it was the first time they'd ever been here, but it was definitely an important time because what they did that day is still reverberating in our culture now. There's documentaries about this being that have come out in the last couple of years. It's been 30 years since this happened, and we're still talking about it. It was a watershed moment because this event was so well viewed, because it was seen by so many people, including doctors and professionals, children, adults, everybody. And the town acknowledges that this was real. So this was a groundbreaker. I know that now, right? Then I said it was an inventor, an explorer, which obviously it was. He was, because he was exploring our planet. A genius, sparkly, magical, angelic, otherworldly, happy, and upbeat. So that was what I was getting about this being's personality. When I get something that's important, I circle it. I circled one of a kind and unique. And I said this being is unique and magical like a unicorn. And the unicorn, I got really into drawing the unicorn. I knew I was likely not looking at a unicorn. I could have been, but I figured I probably wasn't. And this was probably symbolic, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to draw this unicorn really good, And he has lots of energy coming out from him. Very, very pretty. And I was just getting mystical, magical energy. Mystical, magical. It's like a dream. And up there at the top, it's hard to go in order here because everything's crazy, but at the top I said the boundaries of ordinary reality have been pushed and there is magic on the other side. Hopefully I can read all this, read my own writing. And then over here, again on the left, I wrote freedom in big letters. Now, if I feel like writing something in big block letters and circling it, that pretty much means it's something that's really important, or at least it feels like an important factor in the map, right? That's just a way for me to sort of organize how important this information is so I can pull it out later. So then, down here on the left-hand bottom side, we repeat the numbers. We do this 3 times. It's called a scan. When you write the numbers and you do another ideogram, you see this loop. And it trailed off into a squiggle. So, to me, it was a being plus more, I said. I didn't know. Well, it turns out there was 2 beings, okay? Doesn't that look like 2 beings? I did 2 loops. There were two beings at this crash, and one of them was found deceased at the time, and one was still alive at the time. In the end, they both transitioned across the veil. Melifon is talking to me from the non-physical world now. But literally, there was two beings, and I wrote that. And I haven't looked at this map since I did it, so it's sort of new to me too, okay? So you're just sort of getting a new perspective on things. That's why you do another scan. You just sort of start over with a clean slate and see what comes up. Because sometimes you hit like a wall after your first scan and you're like, I don't know what's going on. So you do another perspective. And so I wrote, nothing here is predictable. This place is bonkers. Things here are shaken up, woken up, enlightened. Endless possibilities. Well, all of that was relevant because this UFO landed on Earth and it made everything crazy. Topsy-turvy land, And then I heard the phrase, dude, you have no idea. I don't know what that is, but it could be some of the people that saw him. It could be what they were saying back to if they could communicate with their people, they could have been like, dude, it's crazy over here. I mean, I don't know. I wonder if they were in communication with their people back home when they crashed. But that's the thing. I didn't analyze it. I just wrote it down. You don't analyze these things when you're doing this. You just start writing, okay? Don't stop and think about it. And then I said, it's like the astral or some other dimension where objects appear just by thinking about them. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah, I don't know what that was about unless that's where he comes from. Maybe that's where what they have, where you can just think about an object and it appears. I don't know. And then I said, wild, untamed imagination. And now this being, what I said about him being an intellect and a thinker, he was said to feel like a very advanced soul. So I believe that he was seriously mentally advanced. Everybody said his energy ruled the room. All he had to do was look at you and you knew he was in charge. So underneath here where I said mystical, magical, which is how I felt with him, the whole time I was doing this session, you can feel the energy of beings or situations when you're in these sessions. You can even bilocate during your sessions. You can merge with an object or a being. You can scan their bodies, see what's going on with them. And I just felt like he was a magical being. I had such a good time doing this session because he was so nice to work with. So then I wrote, is the unicorn real? I think that's what it said. Is the unicorn real? Yes. And then I wrote, note, I feel a connection to this being. Like there is an element of myself here. Oh, that's interesting because of something he told me in our channelings. I feel happy, excited, uplifted. This is fun. And then my assumptions, I was trying to summarize why. My assumptions, that I am literally talking to a mystical being like a unicorn. When it could be a spirit guide or an animal from Earth or elsewhere, a thought form or an egregore or an ET. So that was where, when I wrote assumptions, what I'm trying to say is, what are some assumptions I could be making that are incorrect? So I'm like, maybe I'm talking to a real unicorn, or maybe I think I'm talking to a unicorn and I'm not. Maybe I could be talking to an ET instead, which it turned out to be. So, it's not all spot on accurate, but it was pretty accurate. He did have a horn. And then I got some more information. Let me see if I can read this. Let me go to another video and try that. Hold on.